Making a full, theoretically backed opening repertoire is one of the most daunting things you can do on your chess journey. Watching a few opening videos for black and white is one thing, but going down every single line and memorizing everything you need to play is an entirely new challenge. In today's video, I'll be showing you how to make your entire repertoire from scratch, specifically tailored to how you want to be playing and not what someone else tells you to do. I will preface today's video by saying that this will not be a straightforward process at all. This is going to take quite a lot of time to not only build but memorize the repertoire too. If you get halfway through today's video and feel like making an opening repertoire on your own will just be too difficult, feel free to check out my coaching options on my website in the description below. It can take quite a few lessons to build an entire opening repertoire from scratch. However, new students can also use code FIRST at checkout for 25% off their first lesson. With all that being said, if you have plenty of time to study and you're pretty sufficient in reading an engine, coaching isn't absolutely necessary. So let's get straight into how you can start building your own opening repertoire. Choosing your opening. Choosing your opening is easily the most important part to building your own opening repertoire. Most chess players pick an opening because a YouTuber told them to, or because it just has a cool name. But what if I told you you should be taking a lot more care with the opening you actually choose to play? Your openings define who you are as a chess player. Some openings are more tactical, some more positional. Some keep more pieces on the board, and some trade a lot of pieces off. Some black openings will temporarily forfeit an advantage to white to only win it back in the middle game. Some will stay solid for the entirety of the game but be a little bit passive. So how can you choose your opening, and better yet, should you swap if you've already picked? Well, let's start off with the latter first. If you've already picked an opening and you don't care about gaining elo too fast, then realistically you can swap whenever you want. Just don't change your opening because you're losing a lot of games with it. The reason that you're losing games isn't because the opening is bad, it's because you just don't understand it properly. However, if you don't like the middle game plans and you think they're either too boring or too complicated, then it's fine to swap. It's all about finding your chess identity, and often that lies in your opening repertoire. So now that we've established that changing your openings is actually okay, how do we pick an opening? Well, I actually found this really cool graph made by someone in the chess community, which I'll link in the description below. Essentially, this is just a coordinate graph aiming to categorize certain openings by how positional and tactical they are, and by how solid or aggressive they are. Of course, you should also pay attention to how theoretical these openings are. If you don't like studying a lot, you might want to pick a less theoretical opening, but generally, this graph should give you a good idea on what you should be playing based on your playstyle. To keep things simple and efficient in this video, I'm just going to be expanding on my knowledge of my own opening repertoire. I spend enough time making these videos that I don't need to add another 10 hours learning an entire new opening for this video. However, for the best viewing experience, I will still walk you through step by step on how you can make an opening repertoire from scratch. So now that we've picked our general opening, let's start building a basic frame. The first thing that you'll want to figure out is what opening move to play first. If you're the white pieces, this is going to be a lot easier because you only need to study one opening. However, if you're the black pieces, you immediately need to study all of white's opening moves. We're going to make a repertoire with white here, so I hope my explanation with the white pieces gives you enough information to do it with the black pieces as well, as they are essentially the same. In this case, I'll play d4 because that's my main repertoire already, and I'll be better at explaining the theory to you. Whilst we do this, it might be helpful to make a flowchart so we can keep track of what we're going to play depending on what black replies with. I'll leave an example of a flowchart in the description below so you guys can see what I'm talking about. It's also very useful to use 365chess.com, which provides you with opening eco codes which act as a flowchart for every possible theoretical variation. It basically shows you the likely responses from the opponent, the win rate players have for those openings, and masters who frequently play said variation. Whilst I do recommend you look at the eco codes for the first few lines, I would highly recommend you use the Lichess Explorer tool to assist you as well. The eco codes will only recommend theoretical lines, whilst the Explorer will show you common mistakes made by Lichess players that you can prepare for. Make sure you have your Lichess Explorer set to your Lichess rating also, so it only takes games from players around your rating. Already on move 1 after d4, black has a variety of options. The amount of variations you want to cover is completely up to you. It just depends on how deep you want your repertoire to be. So, we'll cover all variations with over 10,000 games played on the eco codes. Those responses are knight f6, the Indian game, d5, e6, the Horwitz defense, f5, the Dutch defense, g6, the modern defense, d6, c5, the old Benoni defense, c6, the Slav or Karo invitational, knight c6, the McKenna's defense, b6, the English defense, or e5, the England gambit. Any response other than this is generally not going to come up in your games unless your opponent's trolling you. But you can take principles from other openings that you've learnt and apply them to these weird openings that people might play against you. So this should be the foundation of our flowchart. We tackle each individual response from our opponent the exact same. So let's explore how we can formulate and study one of these single variations. So to study an individual response from black, we're going to open up a lichess study and track all of the individual moves that we're going to play. For this example, we'll look at the England Gambit as a response, as for the viewing experience, the differences in lines are quite obvious and it'll be the easiest to follow. Just note that whilst we're only looking at the England Gambit in this video, the same applies for all of the other variations as well. This is just the process. The depth in which you choose to explore is completely up to you. Make sure your board orientation is on the preferred color first. If you're training for the black pieces, change the default orientation to black in the chapter settings. Then we put the first two moves on the board, d4 and e5. On the engine sidebar on lichess, we also want to expand the potential lines to 5, so we have 5 lines to choose from in any given position. In this position, d takes e5 is by far the best choice. If the evaluation is much better for one move, usually at least 0.4 better than the secondary move, we want to choose it. So let's play d takes e5. Already, black has multiple England Gambit lines they can go down. We can see on the Lichess Explorer when we select the Lichess database that 2 knight c6 is the most common response. So we'll choose to look at this first. It's very important to mention that when you build your study, make sure to mark positions where your opponent can play multiple moves. I like to leave a comment on the move crossroad and mark the move with a lichess move symbol to help when I need to come back to the line later. This is so we can come back and explore the other common moves later. Anything played in more than 5% of lichess games should be explored. However, that figure of 5% should significantly increase the deeper we get in our theory, as the likelihood of the line will drop as each move is played. When we look for which move we want to respond with, we want to look at the engine more than the most common moves on lichess. Whilst looking at common lichess moves can help us identify cool tricks and traps, it's better to stay solid and principled unless tricky play is what you're aiming for. In this position, knight f3 and bishop f4 are the best responses. Theoretically, they're interchangeable, but knight f3 is slightly better because if black plays a non-theoretical move like a6, the knights will be slightly better than the bishop. You can actually figure out why certain moves are better on evaluation yourself too. Just play the move the engine is suggesting, waste a move for black, like playing a6, and see what the engine thinks the punishment is. If the punishment is unclear, then you're either not skilled enough to see the reasoning, or the engine is thinking too many moves into the future and you just didn't look far enough. In a lot of instances though, this is not necessary, and as long as we're happy with the move the engine is suggesting, and more importantly understand it, we should play it. Anyway, let's proceed with knight f3. Black now can respond with a few options once again. This is a moment we must come back to as well, covering what we should do when d6, bishop c5, and f6 are played by black. For now, let's continue with what happens in 63% of games, and put queen e7 on the board. Now we have 3 candidate moves, bishop f4, knight c3, and bishop g5. We also notice because a3 is over 0.4 evaluation lower than our best possible move, we don't want to consider it, as it is theoretically subpar. There are sometimes exceptions to this rule, but they don't come up often. When we previously had a decision to make with white, it was because the moves were interchangeable and didn't really make a difference. However, in this position, it's different. Bishop f4 and bishop g5 both hold onto the pawn in their own ways, but knight c3 allows black to capture the pawn. To make the decision of which position we prefer, we just want to make our way down the line and see if we like the resulting position. Let's say if knight c3, knight takes e4, bishop f4, knight takes f3, g takes f3, queen b4, queen d2, and d6, do we like this position? Consider characteristics about the resulting position. Will castle long, we have the open g file, but an isolated h-pawn, and we can take the full center with e4. There's nothing wrong with this position, and considering this position and the position we're going to continue with are the same on evaluation, it's a matter of preference to which one you want to play. I recommend playing both lines against an engine on lichess or chess.com and figure out which games you enjoyed the most or which came most naturally to you. Whenever you're confronted with a decision to make like this one, we want to use the same process to decide which line we want to play. So, with this in mind, let's move on. I personally prefer playing bishop g5 because when I first made my opening repertoire, it was the one that came most naturally to me, although bishop f4 is interchangeable. Queen b4 check is played in 91% of games, with knight c3 and bishop d2 being interchangeable moves for white. So we continue with knight c3, queen takes b2, which is played in 95% of games, followed by the only move according to the engine, bishop d2. Now if we look at the Lichess database, black either plays bishop b4 here or knight b4. Because we've essentially explained how to create your own lines and problem problem solve which variations of moves we want to play, we'll skip the theory for the rest of this line. This is all well and good though, but how do we compile a study that reflects our repertoire in an organized fashion? Well, the answer to this is that we're going to make an extremely long and detailed study. Each chapter should contain one line, with the title of each chapter explaining where the line splits off. In the description below, I'll link this Anglin Gambit study where I've broken down most lines that I would find myself getting into. You'll be able to see how I organize these lines and how you can create yours in a similar way without confusing yourself. Before we do that though, let's look at the very end of the line we just looked at so we can see where our theory should end. I'm actually ending this line of theory on move 10. Why? Because you can see on the engine, white has several moves to maintain the advantage here. Whilst some are better than others, the moves are now quite intuitive, and I feel a player of my strength can find these moves without needing to memorize the theory. My position is already comfortable enough for me to win most games from this position. In other lines, the evaluation will not be so much in our favor. Let's say if our opponent played the Queen's Gambit declined, we will not have a big advantage out of the open. In this case, we should simply continue with our theory until we get to a point where we're comfortable with the position and understand the middle game plan. If you aren't familiar with the middle game plans for your opening, there is plenty of free content out there on a variety of different openings that could help you. This process will take some time. It helps if you have a coach to walk you through it, but if you don't, that's okay too. You'll just have to be very patient with it. I highly advise that you make your own opening repertoire though. It's much better to play moves that you understand and you want to play rather than moves someone else tells you to play. It's also important to mention that with some gambit lines, including the Anglin Gambit, it's not really necessary to look at every line in a lot of depth. In some variations, black will just give you a full pawn and there is not really any theory to go along with it. This means the theory goes out of the window, they've given you an entire free pawn, and all you need to do is defend the game and convert into a winning endgame. However, this only really applies to really dodgy openings and not any real opening. Now let's look at how you can practice your newly formed repertoire. There are a few ways that you can go on to continually practice all the moves that you put into this Lichess study. The first I'll give you is completely free, and then the second one is a more advanced version that is paid. Firstly, let's look at the free option. In addition to this free option, you might want to take a look at a video that's up on my channel called How to Learn Any Chess Opening in 24 Hours. It goes through a lot of study techniques that we won't go through today, but there are some valuable things in that video you can add to your study plan, most of which are free. Essentially, the study of our repertoire is mainly going to revolve around memorization. Whilst understanding the opening and middle game plans are a big part of learning an opening repertoire, usually people struggle the most with memorization, so that's what we'll look at. In your Lichess study you created, you can click on the cogwheel next to any chapter, click on the analysis mode dropdown and select interactive lesson. This will put the chapter into a mode where you can practice all of the moves without having the notations spoiled for you. There are a few issues with this though that makes it slightly subpar to our other paid option. First of all, the title of your chapters will probably spoil the moves of the line. There is no way to keep the study properly organized without spoiling these lines a little bit. There is also no way to randomize the lines in which you want to practice, meaning if you do them in order, you're not going to be properly tested as you'll play through a bunch of similar variations all at once. From what I've found online, there doesn't really seem to be a better free alternative than just this. Leave a comment below if you know something free that is similar to this and I'll pin it in the comments below, but I think this might be the best free alternative. The better option though comes from the sponsor of today's video, chessmind.ai. I actually specifically requested this feature to be added to the website just for this video. I've been wanting something like this to help with my opening study for a long time, so let me show you how it works. If you go to chessmind.ai, immediately at the top of the page you can click Add Course. From here, you can literally just copy and paste the Lichess study link you made and Chessmind makes a full opening course on the lines you've made yourself. Just to properly demonstrate this feature, we're going to jump into a live example to show you exactly what I mean. Setting up a course on Chessmind is extremely easy. What you want to do is have a Chessmind tab open. You want to go to your Lichess study. You can see this is the one that is in the description below. You guys are more than welcome to base your study off of this one. We want to just use the URL bar at the top of your browser and copy it. And then we want to go back to Chessmind, click Add Course. This is on the main page. If you click this Chessmind button, it will bring you to this page. Add Course, enter the course name. I'll put Anglin Gambit White. You can put whatever you want in the description here. So I'll put Anglin Gambit course, and you want to click on, you can do PGN as well. If you have a PGN, you can use that. but I'm going to use Lichess Study. I think it's a little bit more convenient, and we click add course after we paste this in, and it creates a course for you. So now you can see my courses, Angle and Gambit White. We can click on this course, it'll load it up, and we can now practice our course in a quiz fashion. So you can see we have to skip through all of the opening lines here to get through the first line that we put in this video. We didn't get quite this far through. We kind of gave up on the line a little bit early just to make things more efficient, but you can see this is the full first line that we would have gone through before, and now we can practice it. So we can practice all the moves ourselves. We can take this pawn, we can bring the knight out, we can bring the bishop out, the knight goes to c3, the bishop goes back here, we go knight d5, we go takes, and we go rook d1 and king c8. Once you finish 3 separate lines, you can do the speedrun mode as well, which will randomize all of these chapters and allow you to practice them kind of without them being spoiled at all. So this is a really cool feature, very, very simple. I'm not sure if other websites have this. This is the first one that I've seen, but yeah, this is what I use for all of my opening courses. I make them all into little Lichess study links. I've got multiple. I don't just have the Angle and Gambit. I've kind of got them for all of my repertoire. Each individual section has one of these repertoires, and I use ChessMind for basically all of them. Of course, this feature is a paid one, but ChessMind is only $5 per month, and you can get 30% off with the link in the description. With a ChessMind subscription, you'll get all of their opening courses, and you'll be able to get all of their AI integrations as well. If you don't want to pay, ChessMind also has free puzzles on their website, and they're coming up with a free game review feature as well. If you want to find out more about chessmind.ai, I've made a full video on my channel covering the entire website, which I'll leave in the description below. Moving on though, something else that's important to note about building your own repertoire is figuring out which spots of your repertoire are the weakest. There are plenty of websites that you can use to track this exactly. Chess.com has a built-in insights feature if you have Diamond membership. AimChess and Opening Tree are fairly decent tools, along with the Explorer database on both Lichess and Chess.com. Each of these tools should give you a pretty good idea of where your weaknesses lie and where your strengths lie. Of course, there is a lot more to building an opening repertoire than just memorizing all of the moves. You do need to understand all of the middle game ideas that are going to be played as well. However, covering that all in one video would make the video twice as long. And the path to understanding a specific opening is obviously going to vary from opening to opening, so my advice might become a little bit vague. If you guys are interested though and want to be given some advice on how you can learn your opening, middle game, and endgame plans from your specific opening, leave a comment below. If there's enough demand, I'd be happy to make a follow-up video exactly on that. Regardless though, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. A big thanks once again to chessmind.ai for sponsoring today's video. If it weren't for all my students and for the sponsors of this channel, I wouldn't be able to make content. So if you did like ChessMind or you are looking for coaching, feel free to check out the links in the description below. Other than that, let me know in the comments what you guys would like to see next, and I'll see you in the next video.